Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while. As you can see, I started the firewall. Thought this was going to be a short video, but it looks like we've got a little bit more to cover than I thought. There's a few things that I saw in other videos that you're going to want to see and not run into these little dead ends. And in the book, there's a mistake. Put a picture right here of the firewall and your plans. Yeah, stick around. We'll go over all that. Well, let's just get this first thing right out of the way. When I was putting this together, there's two sheets here. The 750 FF01 that shows you it blown up and forward and back, kind of an assembly picture there. And these parts, and of course they're all here. And then there's the 750 FF02, which is another blown up at the front there, and showing you kind of how it's assembled and some riveting and bolting instructions, because you're going to have to change some hole sizes. But right here, this peculiar thing, it has a brace right here in the picture going from the outside in diagonal, and that doesn't exist. So if you see that, I've talked to, well, here's your parts list right here, and there's no arrow pointing to it, and there's no part out here, and this isn't it. It would be here on this angle. So I talked to Roger, and I sent him a picture of it, and he said that he's going to try to get that taken care of with the printing place, or the people that print these, or the guys that do the CAD for them. So that's taken care of. If you see that and wonder about it, just never mind. My first issue was me. I went to get the parts and I literally had checked them off my list right there and hadn't put where they were. A couple of them were, so I got to look in that, and there was boxes with stuff in them that I didn't think I'd put parts. But I put them away as like thick parts, fat, stocky parts like that one, and thin ones, so I kind of figured it out, but it took a long time. So my suggestion is make better notes. The other thing is, I was thinking about doing the back side of the firewall, where you can see it from the engine side, in swirls, like you do aluminum. And then I realized that it has to be all corrosion protected because it's aluminum and steel. And I was thinking of maybe putting a little piece of clear tape, because back in the old days when they just started putting aluminum bumpers back in the 70s on cars, they literally had steel that on the frame where they bolted the aluminum to, and they rusted and fell right off. And I guess they didn't think it was going to happen so quick. So their fix was just to put a little piece of plastic in there. Well, I was thinking of putting plastic on all these stiffeners just on the back side, and then I thought, well, what if it breaks down under heat? What if it does this? What if it does that? So we're going the traditional way. I'm going to prep all my parts now. I'm going through that slow process of busy work, of doing the corners and filing any imperfections out and getting them ready to prime and paint. So it'll be Well, so far so good. A very small project, but a very busy time, so I haven't got a lot done. But we did decide to swirl it all, as you could see before this. Got the swirling done. I just did it by hand. I didn't build any kind of jigs or nothing. just enough to get it so that it doesn't look all marked up like it was when I pulled it out of the box. But it is separate kinds of metal, and we are priming only the surfaces where they're touching. So it'll be a minimal amount of product if there was a lot of heat. Right here in the front where the two are going to meet, any aluminum also, but the most important is where the steel meets the aluminum. Got all the rivets primed up. I'm not going to just dip them. I actually laid them all out and primed them. So they've got nice dried on primer. And that might help with the steel. Let's hope. It's the best I can come up with. I really wanted to do like a tape on the back of these, but I don't know how much give there is. Once these are primed and this is primed, just the places where it's going to touch, we're up and running. So onward and upward. Well, the next thing I'm going to do is this upper stop that's shown here. Number one, the upper stop. I've got these little support braces that have to go on, so I'm going to clean these up, match drill them to here, and the A6s are what hold these in. None of that is in this here in your book, because I believe it's all bungee corded. So there is none of this in this part of the book, so just going to go by common sense. I've just got a few more parts to prep, the bottom support, and get this primed up wherever it's going to touch something. There goes the clock again. And I have to upsize holes here for bolts. These are all going to be according to the plans. In this area, hopefully that's on there. Set the head of the bolts on the inside so it has better clearance. So, yep, bolts go there. All right, let's get to that part. Okay, these are match drilled and the bottom of this is primed. I've just got to prime the mating surface here and underneath on that. The other one over there is drying. Well, I changed my mind. I was taping off all the sections where they're gonna touch so I could prime it up, and that was just getting to be too much work. So I went ahead and finished priming that one, took the tape off. Now I'm going to do the second way is I'm going to prime the area, and once I get it all riveted up, take a very dry lacquer thinner, not soaking wet, and wipe. Just one piece to finish prepping so we can start hooking it up. I don't know why I welded those. I don't know if it's gonna lend it any more strength, but they just folded over each other so many times in that corner. I thought I'd just put a little weld through there, and it's awful thin stuff. I don't know if I'd recommend it. When you're prepping the center stop plate, you got to decide if you're going to put this bracket all the way up tight to it. If you do, and that's the way I wanted it, If you do, you're going to have to trim the back side of this just enough so that when from the other side you go to put the bolt in this hole, the head will clear. And that's one more thing you have to do before you put it together. And if you rivet that in before you grind that out, that's going to be a little tough doing. So do that now, or leave it back a 1/16 of an inch if you're content with that edge distance. Then I believe it'll clear then without notching it. Notice, but the top piece of this bracket here that goes inside of this is got an extra hole that looks like a 5 on a dice there, and this one where it matches up to isn't there. So now's a good time to get that drilled and get that denibbed, and so that you don't have to do it later like me. This kind of answers the question too. Wherever there's smaller holes, they need to be clecoed and up-drilled. Like this is a A4 rivet size, and it says here clearly in the plans, A5 all rivets. And then on page 2, A5 all rivets. So we've got to upsize these to, in number 9, the center firewall stiffener, that has now it has AN3-4A bolts, 16 of them, so 8 aside. It doesn't start at the top row. In case you're doing it without assembling it, it starts in the second row down. It says the AN3's bolts start at row 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what the part number was is that center firewall stiffener. The bolt holes are already the right size in C75L31. If you want to match drill them, I suppose you could somehow put them in, but check them. They need to be enlarged in the center firewall stiffener. I had to make a stubby. I didn't have one that short, so I had to grind one down. Now it just fits in. Just got to denib those. Something just occurred to me. What if that hole right there, because they don't say anything that I could find to drill that, what if that was a lineup piece for that part of the metal and they didn't want us to drill a hole there? I suppose I should have thought of that sooner. But the distances are all the same still, so I don't see a bad thing having one extra in there. I wish we had that booklet sheet thing that they have for the stoles, where you go through, and I was just talking to Kip about that we just have the online paper, online resources, and our booklet, but it doesn't have like 1, 2, 3, 4, go right down the line and do it. Like it should have a step in there. Drill these out. We don't have that. It's just in the blueprints, and that's good and all. But it'd be nice to have something that a booklet that you could just check things off as you went. I have a little more priming to do on this one. And one thing I prefer is to not use a long one and try to get in there. Whenever there's bolts and something that's very crucial, which I believe this part is, I like to sand them flat. Because you can see it, and if it's bulged slightly and showing that dark mark ring around it, then they're not flat. And of course, fire prevention is probably number one, and corrosion protection is number two. So the reason we're leaving these all bright is for fire smoke damage inside in the cabin in case of an engine fire of any sort. And I suppose the give and take and the compromise is at least we have primer between each piece for corrosion down the road, and hopefully it wouldn't give off enough odor having just a little bit of primer underneath all these to be as dangerous as if you were to put, you know, 2 full coats of paint and primer on it. It would look nice, but I'm gonna go with this polished look. There it is. It wasn't going to clear for a lot of future rivets, so I decided to cut it down for this one. I could have put them in backwards, upside down, but I didn't want to. So it was it had to be cut down to clear to get in there. 16s go off, or those 6s go off pretty good, don't they? Yeah, it looks really good. It drew it down nice. These look good. These look good. All right, I'm gonna put these in also. I already checked to see if these will interfere at all with the puck underneath. If I put them this direction, and they won't. Any workplace can be the right place. I know I'm just kind of haphazard here, ain't I? But you know, I'm used to that. When you're working on cars in body work your whole life, you're working all different areas. You don't just work in one spot. You work on ladders, you work underneath them, you work, and I know I have a choice here, but I'm just so used to doing whatever I gotta do right where I'm at. And I should work on that. Also have to be, these side brackets also have to be upsized, and I've already done these 3 rows, so I have to do these 2, but I just thought I'd show you, you can clico them together and do them all at once. The other thing I wanted to mention is when you're riveting this up, we know we're not supposed to do anything with these because that's the bolt hole for the motor mounts. But this one here, don't do either because it interferes with the bracket that is the motor mount. So you might have to put that in from the other side. But I'm gonna wait on that and do all these down here. Of course, don't do anything with that. That's motor mount. Everything else is good. Okay, I'm going to start riveting it up now in certain sequences so that I hopefully don't rivet myself into a corner, but there's really not, this isn't too complex. I'm going to put these 2 rivets in first before I install that because I can see that this is going to get in the way. I'm going to try to put all my rivets from the outside engine area in. I just think it'll look better. I don't see any problem with this being a thicker metal and this being the thinner side, even though it goes into a reinforcement in behind, so that's not a problem. But right here, this rivet just goes into, let's say, just this, the firewall. And according to construction standards, the head of the bolt should be on the thinner piece of metal, but this is steel. So I don't think that's going to matter. I want those heads, I don't want the bigger part of the rivet sticking out anyway. So I'm going to ignore that just because even though this is a little bit thinner metal right here, this is thinner than this, it's tougher, it's steel. So it should be just fine putting the rivet heads in that way. And if there's any surprises along the way, I'll tell you. Otherwise, you'll see this pretty much all riveted up. Another quick thing that maybe you've noticed is that when you use your rivet gun, there's very little clearance and you're on an angle and they're hard to do. I went ahead and ground this down and then polished it, but I went all the way from the casting up there just a little and the little bit of housing there and mainly out at the tip. Now, if this was a cast type rivet gun, I wouldn't do that much, or something cheap you can throw away. But this, I wouldn't get my finger in that. When that comes back down, that would cut it pretty bad. But I'll just show you the clearance here, and I'm going to block that with some tape. But now the clearance is unbelievable. I mean, I can get so straight up and down. It feels like it's rocking almost the rivet the other direction. So, and I put it so that the butt of the, I put it slightly upward in about the 10 o'clock position or 9:30, somewhere right in there, so that the back could be out a little bit. And if I have any issues with it, I'll let you know in the future. But right now, I just love it. It's only pulling tiny rivets. The big, huge, and it's super strong. It's steel, and it's round in there, so it can't get misaligned. And just wrap some electrical tape on there to keep my finger out. My pinky or something could slide down in there when I'm holding it. Man, that is the ticket. I wish I would have done that a long time ago. Okay, don't do as I just did. I'm getting final riveting going on, and I put this on thinking that when I squeezed these two together with these inside rivets, that would be smart. I thought I had enough clearance here. Well, with the rivet head through, where's my finger? There it is. With the rivet through, you don't have the room for the gun back there, even if you grind the edge down. So, final rivet those two pieces together at the very top here, in the back. Go from the top or bottom. I'm going from the top, and then put this in. If you've made it this far, I've got a quick question before I finish this one up. This one was entirely filmed by just the echoey shop and my phone, so we didn't have a mic on, I don't think, at all in this one. If you've listened to the other ones, I don't think my mic is all that great. I do like that it doesn't have a wire to it, so I can run around. But my wife doesn't like the echoey sound in the shop, and I kind of like it. So if you can leave a message down there underneath this, which way you prefer, if you don't mind the mic, there's no background noise then. You don't hear the fan running or anything when I'm mic'd up. It just has some kind of sensor or way of putting it out. So either mic or phone. And if it's the mic and you don't like the quality, maybe I'll upgrade the mic. Well, that completes it. If you're going to go this route, adding the prep time to all those parts, getting the edges all rounded, and sand out all the nicks on the edges of all of them, and then make them bright looking by Scotch brighting or straight sanding with 400 works really nice, but you have to go one direction. That adds a lot of time. The swirling, just a word to the wise, the coating on this is quite thin, so I did that with just Scotch Brite. And it looks like I might have on the edge went through the galvanization just a little there. There's going to be fire proof like silicone put around the edge, and I'll probably put a bead on there slightly so that I cover that. But anyway, yeah, if you're going to go at it and brighten that up a little bit, just to hide the scratches and the wear marks on your stuff, go at it really lightly. Other than that, the only thing that I would say again is prep this back piece differently. Leave these two holes out. Cleco that one up so that with the very small one, so that you don't get in the way of it. Leave this off, because these rivets back here, as you can see, get in the way of your rivet gun straight up and down. And the pieces that go in this, I haven't test fitted them, but I assume they just slide in, and then that little hole, they'll hit that rivet down there and stop, and I can adjust that later. Not a big deal if they don't. So we're about done with that one. I'm really happy. There's no big mysteries with it. It's a straight up job. It's just like anything. How far do you want to take it? And thanks for coming along. We'll see you in the next one.